The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a readingaholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have been participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Hello, welcome to New York Parrot's Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. I hope you enjoyed our zany jingle as well as our commercial today. We have Karl Wergeland. Karl Wergeland's poetry has appeared in many journals and anthologies, including Catamaran Literary Reader, Chariton Review, The MacGuffin, and the Main Street Rag. Her chapbook, Breast Cancer, a Poem in 5 Acts, was named an Eric Hoffer Book Award category finalist in 2018. Meanwhile, her long library career is taking her into libraries up and down the West Coast. At some point in all of this, she served as the children's book reviewer for the Seattle Times. Thanks for joining us today, Karl. How are you?
Good. Nice to be here.
Excellent to talk with you. I'm curious, what is the development of your book, brought by Finishing Line Press, Breast Cancer, a Poem in 5 Acts? How did you arrange that, and like, what was the basic, time it took for you for that, and how did you go about coming up with this idea to write on breast cancer?
Well, I was given the terrible diagnosis in January of 2016. And at that time, I had sort of a sort of practice with writing my poetry where I would just go on to, Marvin Bell, he was an instructor of mine. He called it the scroll, where you just kind of add to it every day. Mm-hmm. And as I started going through the process of all the screening and everything, I was writing these verses about what was happening to me. And at that time, I didn't really expect it to be anything. I was just, that was what was coming out of me. But as I got deeper into the process, I thought, okay, why don't I document each phase of this experience in verse? It'll give me something to do. And so I had that container and I kept going with it. And when I was finally all done in September of 2016, I shot it out there because I was, really tired of it, the whole thing. And Finishing Line Press picked it up pretty quickly. So I was pleased about that.
So it evolved over time, and it was a natural part of your process, and you decided to put it into a full chapbook.
Yes, I decided it ended up being a chapbook length. So I decided that would be the right format for submission.
So why 5 acts? Why is it sort of like sectioned off into 5 sections? And then was there a reason why you chose that? And how did those acts coincide with your experience?
Well, it was just that, it's a drama in a way. Cancer is really dramatic for the person experiencing it. I know that for people reading about it, it might seem like, oh, we've heard this all before, but when you're in the thick of it, it feels very dramatic. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought that would be a good structure. I at that time wasn't really expecting to send it out. I was just playing with it.
So how did you feel when you were placed as a finalist in the Eric Hoffer Book Award for chapbook?
Very excited. That was nice validation. Yeah.
And Finishing Line, they went through and they submitted that. And I mean, what was the process for you? I mean, what did you do? And in the meantime, how was you feeling about the waiting for the nominations to go through, and when the awards were finally announced? I mean, how was that for you?
Well, actually, I didn't. Finishing Line did not enter it.
Okay.
They gave me 2 books to read about marketing, and I did read them thoroughly. And so I submitted it to a number of contests. So I actually submitted it myself.
Okay, so in the waiting process for the actual awards to come through for them to announce that, I mean, how long did that take for, and how did you feel as that was in the anticipation? How was that for you?
Well, you actually sort of forget about, you put it out there and then the
Mhm.
months go by and then you get the email and, oh yeah, that's right. I put it in there. So I actually wasn't really waiting for anything. I was just happily surprised when it happened.
Oh, okay. So when the award finally was announced, it was just sort of like, wow, bombshell, it's out of nowhere, kind of, you. So it was part of your, your marketing plan to get some awards to some fresh nominations, and put your book out there to see if anybody went into it and took a bite out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that was just part of the marketing process. It's really interesting that you were just kind of, how many awards do you think you went through to nominate, and out of all of those you got the Eric Hoffer Book Award?
Well, I was a finalist,
You
remember?
were finalist.
Um, uh, I think it was 5 or 6 that I entered. I looked for ones that allowed the author to submit. There are more than you
Okay.
might imagine. So, yeah, 5 or 6. I can't quite remember all of them, but and
Right.
that was the bite that I got.
Excellent. So do you think that brought sales, or did you think that actually maybe at least drew interest in the book?
I'm sure it did because they have put it on their website that I was designated a finalist, and
Hmm.
I use it when I submit other work. It's in my bio now.
And
I keep.
Liam Maines just said, yes, authors need to be proactive with their books, no matter the publisher. Thank you for the advice, Leah. I'm sure that'll help a lot of our authors out there trying to promote their book right now. And go ahead.
Yeah.
So why self-published? Your first 2 books, Voice Break and your other book, were self-published. Why did you choose to self-publish those, and versus when you did your book Breast Cancer, then you chose to go to a independent publisher?
Well, I was in the middle of the MFA program at Pacific University, and I
Mhm.
was about to turn 50, and I just thought I needed to do something to designate that I am still very serious about my writing. I hadn't published anything since I had finished up with the Seattle Times. And
Mhm.
so I hadn't tried to submit my individual poems at that point, but I just needed to do something to say to myself that I am serious and I'm going to keep going. And so Voice Break was an experiment, working with Create Space.
Mhm.
And I actually really enjoyed that process of working with them because I got to choose, the cover, and I got to choose the design and how it was all put together. So that was really a good learning experience for me.
Yeah, I've worked with CreateSpace a few times, and over the years, when it was still around, it's no longer, it merged into Kindle Direct Publishing now. But I worked with them for a while, and I liked the independence and the fact that you could choose a lot of things, more so than with an independent publisher or a traditional publisher, even, where they take a lot of control over the product. And how did your editing process go about when you were putting the all three? I mean, was there a singular editing process, or was there anything changed in the over time for you?
Well, one thing I would decided in the process of working with Voice Break was that I would never do a prose, like even a short story with them because it took me a long time to edit that. And I think there is even with all the work I did, there's at least one typo that I can see. So it's tough to edit. I've learned that I to have a real respect for editors, um, because of that. And so I wouldn't want to go further than working on a poetry manuscript on my own.
So you had help in some of the more recent ones, like with breast cancer. Obviously, you went with Finishing Line Press. Did they have editors behind the scenes working with you, or did you have somebody you hired?
I didn't hire anyone for that. I did my best to get the manuscript as clean as I could, and then they did the rest.
Interesting. So I'm curious, how does your background in voice and singing work its way into your poetry? I know the first book is Voice Break. That sounds sort of like a musical uh, collection. I mean, is your idea, your feelings for music or your approach to music ever find its way working into your poetry?
Well, I think it's really important for poets to develop an ear in terms of rhythm. And when I read something, I like to see if I can find the rhythm in the same way that you would if you looked at a score. And so I have thought about that, not in any depth, but it's occurred to me more than once to think about. I've wondered if working on singing, practicing singing, has helped my ear as a writer. I don't know for sure. I just have wondered that.
And thank you, Debasish Samatarare. It's meaningful discussion, he says. Thanks. And remember, people watching right now on Facebook, you can leave some comments live, questions if you have for our author, Kari. So how does Zen work into your poetry? Your practice of meditation of Zen, does that ever find its way into your work as well?
Absolutely, because one thing about the Zen practice is you sit there and you learn how to just experience everything that's happening around you, your own sensations, the what's happening, like the temperature of the air, the sounds, and so that strengthens my ability anyway. If I'm trying to compose a poem, I try to go into that space as I'm writing and then feel it come through. And sometimes whatever is happening, like how the clouds are shifting in the sky or what's outside the window, that can come into my poetry.
So it's sort of like the meditation is like in the here and now. It's in the present. And is there a specific practice that you take for Zen meditation that helps you sort of release your creative energies?
Well, I do. I actively sit as Zen Buddhist. So it is mainly that you sit, and there are a couple things you can do. One, you can label your thoughts and notice what's happening in your mind. You can also spend time just feeling all the sensations in your body and listening, and just use all your sensory ability to pick it up what's happening right now, to be as present as possible. And I do that in a repetitive way. And that's not just for my writing, it's just for my own personal functionality. So I do think it helps me as a writer.
If you're stressed a lot, it's hard to write. You put a block. I mean, sometimes a block just happens in your head, and it's really hard to focus, or if it's hard to, think about writing when a lot of stress is going on, or when there's a lot of chaos around you. So I think meditation does help. I think it helps relax your body and your mind enough that you can actually focus on the alternative things that you're doing, the more leisure oriented stuff that doesn't involve. I mean, and writing itself is part of healing. What do you think?
Oh, when I was working on the breast cancer piece, I actually, sometimes when I was writing a verse, I thought I didn't know how I felt until I'd put the verse down. And then I would say, oh, this is how you're really feeling about this. I can't think of something specific right now because I'm kind of further away from that, thank goodness. But more than once that happened to me. I just put the verse down and I had an insight as to what I was really going on.
How does it feel to share those experiences to such a broad audience as the poetry public? I mean, do you feel, I don't know, like you might feel a little bit of shy, or do you feel like, maybe some people reading this can relate to it?
I had a book launch with a lot of I worked for Cuyamaca College for 16 and a half years down in San Diego County. And my friend Patricia Santana she helped host the book launch for me, and I'm there in front of all these faculty members, and I had this horrible feeling of I'm reading this to them, and I had to like say to myself, okay, you're going to have to do this since you wrote this book.
Right.
And so I took a breath and then went into it. I decided, okay, I will answer their questions about, the health issues, or that was the moment where I felt that, but I did plow through it.
So did you have any interesting reactions from, people that read the book, or from people that were at these readings, and they come up to you and say they related, or they felt kind of like they understood what you were going through, or even some people that, related because they'd also been through the ordeal?
I've had several people discuss that with me, and I know that a friend of mine has a gift shop, and she's sold copies of it, and there were people who actually came up to her and said that they liked they stood there and read it, and
Mhm.
and then they bought it. So I was pleased about that.
So people really relate to the rate to that experience. It must have been a very hard ordeal. I mean, in writing the book, what is it? How does that compare to your other two books? The experience of writing your breast cancer in 5 acts versus your previous two collections.
I think I went into deeper emotions in the third one. I mean, I was feeling a lot of anger a lot of the time, and I think that it came out in that particular book. The
Hmm.
other ones are lighter, I think. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So, in the anger, do you feel like the anger compelled the poetry at all?
Yes, because I mean, there you go into a dark place at times. I mean, I came out of
Mhm.
it, but there were times when I just really did feel like, I was stuck and I wasn't going to get past it. And some people don't, they go into
Mhm.
the process and then they see the end of their lives. So when you're, especially in chemo, it's easy to imagine death when you're in
Mhm.
the process of chemotherapy. But fortunately, I did come out of it, and I'm happy to be living fully again.
Right. Absolutely. It's a lot stress free. Do you feel like you're writing some new stuff right now that related to your current life at all, or have you kind of taken a pause?
No, I've been writing. I've been writing. The pandemic has been a good excuse to get more work done
Hmm.
because we're all at home more often.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to continue working from home, but I have had time to write poetry and work on stories, and so I'm working on things. In fact, the one that I will read is from the pandemic period.
I noticed you've been published quite a bit in anthologies and journals. Looking at your press package, how often do you do the submissions, and how does rejection affect your, I guess you could say, your confidence in submitting?
I have sort of a system where I use Duotrope as my submission tracker, and I go through it every month and look for markets that are opening. And if I have something that fits it seems to be um, right for that journal, then I will submit. So I try to just sort of be methodical about it. Um, Rejection when I was younger used to fully knock me off my block. I would just feel that terrible pain. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that my Zen practice has helped with that because I now try to just be methodical about it. And if I get a rejection, then I mark it off and go on to the next. Um,
Excellent policy. Let's
yeah.
take a break for just a moment. We'll come back with Kari's poetry. Thank you. Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have been participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and please return to The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Hi, we're back with Karl Wergeland. This is a wonderful discussion we're having about her poetry. So she's going to read us a poem of hers, something new, I believe. So go ahead.
Okay. So this is about to come out in North Meridian Review.
Okay.
It's called Pandemic. Pandemic. Stave churches were built in Norway before Black Death opened its eyes and lumbered over cities, leaving the streets littered with dead. Long staves took a long time to cure. A father would start the process, a son might finish. Watch the church materialize, resemble a Viking ship with menacing dragons on each end to ward off evil spirits. They meant business. 1,000 churches built in time to take on the plague, but only a few edifices survive. These remaining vessels shift and creak with the rocking of time, wooden engineering holding firm. It's an important voyage for those used to steel, plastic, stone even, for people who have never experienced a pandemic until now.
Wow, thank you. So what prompted some of that imagery at the beginning, especially at the beginning, the comparison or the a likeness of the Black Death at the beginning, or the specific images? Was there something you read, or was there a program you watched maybe?
Well, I actually visited one of those churches in Norway, and it amazed me that it was still standing, and
Wow.
and just the idea that something wooden could last so long, that it was there before the plague, and now, and now we're going through a very different one. So
Right.
that's where I started.
Right. There's a lot of doubt about this pandemic. It's creating a lot of confusion amongst people, and it's being politicized and stuff. How do you feel? I mean, what are your personal feelings on how we can act within this structure, this new structure we're being faced with?
Well, I think one thing I'd like to see people just be a little gentler with each other. It feels so contentious, and this is a very serious mess.
Mm-hmm.
And people sometimes need time to make their various decisions, and about how they're handling this. But I guess I just like to see more gentleness and kindness over everything we're experiencing, because we're all in this together.
Right. This is one of those moments where we're reminded how human we are, how fallible we can be, and how vulnerable. And there's been so much conflict in the last few years of politically and so forth, and throughout the world. All these various things happening, from wildfires to floods and tsunamis and everything going on. It's like it's very difficult to for people to feel comfortable. And so I think you're right. I think we should be a lot more gentle with each other. Just forget all the differences we have between each other, and just remember that you're talking to a fellow human who's in the same exact situation, and we're all feeling kind of lonely and very dried out by this stuff. And I don't know about you, but I'm just exhausted with it myself. I'm hoping it's over soon, So how are you as a writer? What do you think? How do you still continue to promote the arts within this, I guess you could say, structure of the pandemic?
Well, I think that there are, different things are coming online, and we can support the people who are performing online. Or if they're like, say, a theater opens and they're only working at half capacity, try to go if you can, just stay with it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I think we'll come out of it in time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the arts are absolutely important, and we want them to survive.
Absolutely. I mean, and they will survive. And I think the humanity will come through this and we'll be much stronger. I think a lot of things are going to evolve out of this, this entire process that's going on now. We're going to have to come up with ways to, very creative ways. And I think the arts could kind of aid us in that. And, we're going to have to start thinking outside the box quite a bit on what we can do for each other, for the future of humanity, to prevent any kind of deadly stuff like this to happen into our future. I think, and I'm curious, like, you worked quite a bit in libraries. What did you learn about people from working in libraries?
Well, libraries are a great laboratory. When I used to work for the Seattle Public Library, that was the first librarian job. And I think during that time, I worked at one time or another in every branch that they had. I was assigned to several branches, but sometimes they would move us around. But anyway, yes, you watch the community come in, the community comes to you, and that is great fodder for writing, because Seattle has many unique communities, and I was constantly noting what I was seeing. And now I'm in an academic setting, and the users tend to be more uniform, but even there, we have a range of students, from people who are just out of high school to older people coming back to school. So,
do you find that certain groups like the particular types of literature more than others, or is there a particular very popular style of literature you saw people mostly interested in during your time at the libraries?
well, I think what's great about libraries is we try to have something for everyone. And so I don't know that I can call out any specific type of literature, because I've seen everything go out. And as somebody who works on creating collections, I look for things that fit the entire community that I'm working with. So, of course, bestsellers are going to go out more than, something that's literary, but
Right.
it all goes out. So,
Do people take a lot of interest in poetry from your experience?
there are definitely people who are interested in poetry. It tends to be, I think, a smaller group of fans, but there's a place for it.
Absolutely. Did you find that people liked any kind of any comments that people would make about the books that they checked out that you found interesting?
Their people could be, either I love this, help me find, like, when Harry Potter came out, everybody wanted to find the next book that was like it, help me find fantasy that's similar to Harry Potter. So we do get that.
People looking, they want recommendations to similar books that they like.
Yeah, if there's something that they really fall in love with, then they want to find the next author that's like that.
So what was your experience like working as a reviewer of children's literature? Did you find that your library experience helped that quite a bit?
Oh, yes, because we, as a group of children's librarians, we would meet once a month and review books to each other. So I learned from all the librarians that I worked with how they reviewed their books, what they found was important. We were teaching each other.
How did you choose what books you decided to review?
I went through different approaches for that. Of course, they wanted to see local work. They also wanted me to try to come in line with a news story, like if the Olympics were on, find books that were on the Olympics, or if it could be a holiday. There were certain books that were winning awards. Of course, you'd want to highlight those. So there wasn't any one approach. I just had the pile, and then depending on what was going on, I put together some titles.
So if someone were, I mean, obviously you did children's books, but if someone were an author in any category and they were trying to find a space to review their work, like what is your advice for approaching reviewers in that regard?
That's a tough one because reviewers are getting slammed with books. I mean, the best thing to do is to send a good, media kit. And, if you have a review copy, although now that I have been sending out review copies myself, you might be selective because a lot of them can't review. So you might kind of see if you can get a nibble from them and then send a copy. But if it's somebody you really want, a larger outlet, then send a review copy.
Yeah, I mean the difference between, say, the New York Times and the I don't know, Alvin community paper or something.
Yeah.
It's like how do you choose what audience you want to approach and your marketing strategy. And I know that's one key that I've learned over the years is that you don't want to just spread it out all over the place. You want to have a sort of plan and in place where what kind of people are going to be approaching your book, and you want to target them and give them the go ahead and where you're at. How do you think you can do that?
Well, it's difficult because as a reviewer, I mean, there were times when I chose somebody who had written something with that was published by a small press. Now they're not necessarily always going to get the ink, but you could get the ink. So it's a lottery shoot. I mean, you just have to decide how much you want to spend on it. And I would say for larger papers, you would want to send the review copy. For smaller, rags, like I said, just see if you can drum up some interest.
Right. Is there a method that you used yourself to get reviewers' attention?
I did that. I sent review copies to the larger papers, and I sent media kits to smaller ones or bookstores. I didn't get a huge response, but I did get a few.
Interesting. And so you had a few connections too. You said earlier about your friend who ran a gift shop, and they were able to get it in their book, and the gift shop where people could see it. Mm-hmm. And so that's interesting. That it's something that a lot of people don't have those connections and stuff. I mean, what would be your most if you could give just any advice to an author trying to get some recognition for their books, what would it be?
Well, I would go to the two books that Leah said, she told me about, and one I think is called the Frugal Book Promoter, something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And then there's another one by Carolyn Howard Johnson, and I'm now the name Guerrilla Marketing is the other one. Mm-hmm. And I went through those thoroughly and decided which approaches I could actually work on.
Right. I think it's a matter of just recognizing for yourself what you want and what sort of approaches to decide what approaches you take. So you submitted to awards and you submitted to journals and getting your poetry out, and you have, I believe you said earlier the poem you just read was New Meridian Review. I think you said it was going to publish it.
The New Meridian Review.
Yeah. So North
yeah.
Meridian. Okay. Yes. North Meridian. So where do you find a list of publications to submit to that if some authors out there, poets, writers, they're trying to think, well, where do I get my work out? What is there a list somewhere, or is there like a good solid list?
There are many, actually. I use Duotrope. And what you can, they list thousands of journals, small presses, anthologies, and contests. And they have a newsletter that comes out every week. And what I try to do is kind of go through it and see if any of them are of interest to me. But I now have developed a list of several hundred that I look at regularly.
And so do you submit to the same journals a few times and try to, you just have narrowed it down to some that you think will be most interesting to you to be published in, and you just continuously submit until they take it?
Well, I over time, I've kind of developed, I sort of have shaped the list. I started out by taking a stab at certain ones. And Yeah, I don't necessarily submit to them every time, but I have a list of them, and if it's the right timing, then I submit. Sometimes they have a call for submissions that's focused on a theme. So if I see that, I think, oh yeah, this story would work for that one. And to try to help those who are trying to get their work out there, the percentage of acceptance for me is like 2%. So you have to put out a fair amount to get a little a little.
Right. I know a lot of people right now are been very dissatisfied with their their productivity in terms of getting accepted, and so I think it's interesting to explore that dimension of the writing profession, that you're going to get a lot of rejections.
You
I
are,
mean,
you are.
tons and tons and tons, and it doesn't reflect on you. It reflects or your work. It reflects the editor may have just had a bad day, or may just be tired, and he might not even read their book thing. I'm an editor myself, and a lot of times I go through and I read through, and if it doesn't spark an interest in me immediately, I sometimes say, "Oh, I'm not interested in this." It may have been a great poem. I may just not have been interested that day. So that's my advice to writers. Don't let it reflect on you as a writer. If you get a lot, especially if you get a lot, sometimes that just means you just keep pressing on and keep pushing. So, what would your final words be to our audience out there? It could be advice, it could be encouragement. What would you say?
Well, since we kind of focused on the publication process, I would say I have noticed several people in my life who are fine writers, and they do slow down when they get a rejection. And I want to say to them, just ignore it and go on. But I see them. I used to be this way myself, so I understand it. But that's my advice: is it does hurt. Let yourself feel the pain, and then put it behind you and send something out.
Right, I totally agree. Just keep the faith, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
do you have any thank yous or some words of applause to friends, family, anybody you want to just say, give a shout out to while you're on the program?
Sure. I certainly have to thank my mom and dad for caring about my creative process, and they did support my writing when I was young. I thank my teachers. I would call out Jim Moore and Marvin Bell, Finishing Line Press, and two writing friends, poet Maylon Gittleson and novelist Patricia Santana, for the long discussions we've had about this process.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Kari. It's been wonderful talking with you. And thanks to Finishing Line Press and Leah Maines for selecting you and pushing you forward into our program. And this has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, and I hope you enjoyed today's programming. If you would like to be on the program, we would be more than happy to help promote your work and your personality. Just be in touch at Literary Corner at newyorkparrot.com. If you want to donate, if anybody out there has a little spare change and they don't know what to do with it, support the arts. It's wonderful. You can donate to us, actually, paypal.me/nyparrot. It's right there. Support this program. So please do. I mean, we definitely will appreciate you. And if you would like to give us a subscribe to our channel, that would be wonderful as well on YouTube. Just subscribe to our channel, encourage others to subscribe. We are looking for 1 million subscribers. So if you have not subscribed, we would definitely want you to subscribe. And thanks to all our viewers and all those who have been on this program. Our next anthology will be due December 1st, Series 2 of The Literary Parrot. If you haven't picked up a copy of Series 1, you're missing out quite a bit, and it'll give you an idea of what we represent and what we're promoting. So thank you very much. I'm Dustin Pickering. This is the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm signing off. Have an excellent. Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects, from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have been participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and please. The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, The Voice.